And I love to hear this one, and I'm not going to say his name, but I'm going to try to imitate him. And I love to hear him because it says to his people, God wants you to be wealthy. And he smiles and closes his eyes. God has abundant riches to pour out on you. God wants you to have all the money you've ever dreamed of. I'm sorry. I just couldn't help it. God doesn't want you to be wealthy. You might become wealthy. And God's not going to stop it. If you are wealthy, what God wants is you to give and to share and be generous. What God wants is for you to have enough. If you have any more than that, God wants you to give it away. If anybody ever tells you, God wants you to be wealthy, you say, that's not in the gospel. Anyway, set aside capitalism for a minute. I want to look at how the notion of the creation of wealth, central to our faith, central to Thanksgiving, and a powerful motivator for us in the church today. I want to look at the origin of Thanksgiving. And the origin of Thanksgiving, I'm sure you realize, it is not with turkeys and pilgrims and the Native American people sitting around at a table. The origin of Thanksgiving is within our Jewish history. And in fact, within Judaism, there are 3 celebrations of Thanksgiving every year. We only have 1, but there are 3. The first is the Passover. The Passover is a celebration of Thanksgiving, sometimes called the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when the people sit and they eat unleavened bread because it is a remembrance to them that on the night they were released from bondage in Egypt, they didn't have time to put in the leaven and let the bread rise. They ate unleavened bread. And whenever they eat the unleavened bread, they say, we used to be slaves. Now we are free. And we give thanks to God. God created freedom where there was slavery. Freedom is wealth. That's the creation of wealth. The second Jewish Thanksgiving, which comes in the springtime, is the Shavuot festival, or the Festival of Weeks, in which the people celebrate the harvest of the wheat and the production of bread. And whenever they eat that bread, they say, we used to be hungry and we had no bread, and now we are not hungry anymore. Thanks be to God for that. Another Thanksgiving. And the last Thanksgiving in the Jewish calendar is Sukkot. And interestingly enough, Sukkot just ended on Friday, October the 9th for this year. It is just completed. And Sukkot, or the festival of booths, or the festival of tabernacles, sometimes the festival of tents. And in the period of Sukkot, the Jewish people are supposed to leave their houses and live in a tent in their backyard. And they do that in order to commemorate the fact that when they were fleeing from Egypt, they did not have a house to live in. They were homeless. So they live in the tent through Sukkot, and all through Sukkot they say, we used to be a homeless people, and now we have a home. We give thanksgiving. So all 3 of those festivals, Passover and Shavuot and Sukkot, they are all the people saying we were slaves, now we are free. Give thanks. We were hungry, now we are filled. We give thanks. We were homeless, now we have a home. We give thanks. They are all Thanksgivings, and they are all a celebration that wealth can be created where there was no wealth before. If you have access to land, or labor, or materials, or ideas, you can create faith or wealth where there was nothing. And it's an incredibly great belief and idea. What it means for us as a church is this: wealth is not limited. As individuals, it means we should not be greedy. We should not hoard our money as if there is no more. God says there is always more. You need to give with generosity. You need to see those people who do not have what you have and share with them in abundance. Don't be greedy. Don't hoard. As long as you have access to one of the four things, land, labor, material, ideas, wealth can be created, or wealth can be developed. Within the way that we do mission work today, the notion of the creation of wealth is also very powerful. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about Presbyterian world service and development. And the notion of development is a reasonably recent one within our mission understanding. There was a time when we would have called that branch of our church just Presbyterian world service. Service means giving something to somebody else. But we added on that last thing, development. Because what development means is that you can go to a country where there is nothing, there is no wealth, no food, no water, and by working in partnership with those people, sharing their labor, sharing our ideas and our technologies, you can create wealth, create a society, create an infrastructure where there was nothing. And mission work today is not a matter simply of transferring our money to somebody else so that they have money. That model of mission work implies there is a limited amount of wealth in the world, and it's not right. There is a time, and it is appropriate for us to give of our wealth, but that's not the end. We also have to give our labor, our ideas, our materials, our partnership, and teach people in developing nations it is possible for them to create wealth of their own and become self-sufficient and not just depend upon charity to get by. Inherent to that notion and to the use of the word development is the idea that wealth can be created. Isaac believed that when he was in the deserts of Sinai. We believe it in our mission work today. It's an incredible thing. Just to quickly end up, we read passages from Amos, the 5th chapter, and Mark in the 10th chapter today. Amos talks about the simple need for those people who have to be cognizant of those who do not have. And you don't have to give everything away. Give with compassion, give with grace, and give with love, and believe that those people who today have nothing will one day be self-sustaining. When Jesus talks to the rich young man in the 10th chapter of Mark, he says to him, you have to give everything away. But put that in its context. Jesus was saying to that man, if you really think that you are going to be righteous, if you want to come to me and tell me that you are a good person, let's see you give away everything you have. Then you'll be good. We know it's not going to happen, because the whole story is prefaced by Jesus saying, nobody is good, not even me. No one but the Father is good. So be careful with that passage. Give thanks today that there is not a limited amount of wealth in the world. Wealth can be created. As long as wealth can be created, there is hope that the world will not always be like it is today.